Hey there, fellow networkers. Professor Walters here, and today we're going to talk about some of the don'ts of networking, okay? So when you go to a networking event, you're there to meet people, make contacts, and do things, but there's some mistakes people make when they do networking, and so I want to give you some don'ts so you can be a much more effective networker when you do have that chance to rub elbows with people and get to know them, all right? And I think the first don't I have for you is don't just talk. Make sure you're listening to people. This is how you determine and figure out what their needs are, but also what they could offer you or how you could work with them. This is how you're going to learn. Okay, so don't do all the talking. Do a lot of the listening. So focus on the speakers and focus on their conversation, because you'll be surprised how much you can learn reading between the lines or just what people straight out and tell you if you're willing to listen, okay? And the thing is, when you're talking to people, I think my next don't for you is don't look for other prospects while you're talking to a current prospect. I mean, think about it. Ever go to the bar and you're talking to somebody, but they're not looking at you? They're like looking around like this. Yeah, how are you? Yeah, what? Oh yeah, no, you're important to me. I really care what you're saying. No, you know right away they don't care what you're saying. They're looking for somebody else. They're looking for better prospects. Don't do that. Focus on the person you're talking with and start to develop that relationship. If you realize there's somebody that's not really worth working with, you can end the conversation and move on, but don't be rude about it. Be like, let me look at other people instead, all right? So something to think about. And when you're talking to people, especially if you're in an industry event, don't use jargon, because everybody knows the jargon is just jargon. I mean, if you just make a sentence with just all jargon stuff, people think, oh, you know the jargon, but yeah, we all know the jargon, so why are you talking about that? That can turn people off. But the thing is, if you're advanced that the people don't know the jargon, then they have no idea what you're saying. So make sure you're talking in human terms, okay? Not just jargon terms. Another thing I think is important is don't just jump into a conversation. If there's a circle of people talking, don't just walk in and say, I have something to add to this. Wait until there's a good time for you to enter in and for you to add in conversation, not busting in and kind of stopping the conversation dead in its tracks. That will make you look like a rude person, and people tend not to like to work with rude people, all right? Now, when you get a chance, another thing I think is important is don't forget to introduce yourself to everybody in that circle. And don't forget to say your name every time. Hey, Mark Walters, nice to meet you. What's your name? Hey, okay, Felix, yeah, nice to meet you. Mark Walters, nice to meet you. Mark Walters, nice to meet you. You're saying your name enough times over that other people will start to remember your names. And here's a little bonus. If you get the people to say their names back to you, I bet there's somebody else in that circle that has no idea what those people's names are. And you know that they know that you know that they don't know that person's name, and therefore they owe you one. All right, so something to kind of think about. You know, why not help some people out when you are introducing yourself? Now, another thing that can get you in trouble, and I would say, is don't say nice to meet you. Because here's the thing, when you're going to networking events, a lot of times you're meeting people again or you're seeing people again, and you might have forgotten them. Maybe they have different hair, maybe they went bald. I don't know. But what's better to say is nice to see you, because nice to see you could be nice to see you for the first time or nice to see you for the 400th time. So another don't I have for you is don't be that shy kid. You can't stand in the corner and not talk to people at networking events. There's no mom there that's going to drag you out and force you to talk to people. You've got to get out. You've got to be like, all right, I'm going to go talk to people. That's why you prepare some questions and some topics before you go, so you have things to talk about, right? You got to smarten yourself up. We actually have a video on how not to be shy and boring. Watch that. It could help you out. Now, another thing I think is important to say in networking is don't ask for a recommendation or don't ask for something the first time you meet somebody, because it seems kind of weird when they come up to you like, hey, could you buy my stuff from me? You're like, whoa, I don't even know who you are. You're networking. You're there to build relationships, longer term relationships. So don't ask right away. I mean, you do ask eventually, but not right away. That gets kind of weird. It's like, you know, when you're walking in a city and someone's like, can you give me $1? You're like, no. What? Why would I give you $1? What's going on? Like, it's a bit much. So you want to be careful with that. Now, another thing is, if you're in an event, I would say is don't stand in no man's land. Okay, if you're in one of the corners or you're in the very back of the room, I mean, people, it's really far back here. Can you still hear me? You're not going to come back and talk to me. You want to keep yourself near the door maybe the first third of the way in, because then when people come in, they're going to pass by you and you can say hi. Or if you don't say hi, they see your face, and maybe at the next event, they're like, hey, weren't you at that event in San Diego? Yeah, that's right. And you can kind of start building a relationship without even talking to them. But don't stand in no man's land, okay? You got to come out and be in a more prominent location at these networking events so people see you and they can talk to you, even if it's just a, hey, how are you? Nice to see you. Hey, I remember you from last time. That can help out. Now, another thing is when you're networking, you don't want to be seen as a user. So don't be a user. Make sure you're helping. Remember, networking is like a friendship. It goes two ways to build relationships. It takes two ways. It goes two ways to have a friendship, a relationship, anything, business or not. So make sure you're also giving, not just using, because eventually people know that, here comes Mark. He's going to want something from us and not really going to help. Move on. So have a heads up. Now, another don't I have for you when it comes to networking, especially at networking events, is don't just collect business cards or business contacts. What you want to do is develop relationships. Remember, quality over quantity. Having 1,000 business cards or 1,000 contacts means nothing if no one's actually a real relationship with you. It's probably better to have 5 good relationships and meet 5 people you could possibly work with at this networking event than meeting everybody there, okay? So that leads into my next don't, and that is don't forget to do your research to see who is going to be at the event so you can see who's going to be there, and maybe you might see potential clients or people you might want to work with in the future or potential suppliers. Learn who's going to be there. Sometimes they'll put those lists together and you can even contact them before you go. Say, hey, I'd like to talk to you when you're there. And then they're looking for you. So it's kind of like, oh, hey, yeah, we talked. Great. And that starts building that relationship. And I think it can be really summarized in another don't I have for you is don't just go. Go with a purpose. Have a thing you're gonna do when you're gonna go there. Is it, I'm gonna get 5 contacts. I'm gonna find 2 people I'm gonna do, collaborations with. I'm gonna find someone to help me write this paper on teaching. Have a real goal when you're going to a networking event, because that's something you work towards. Because you just go, you're just going. You're like, hey, I'm here, so I accomplished my goal of going. Write it down. What do you want to get done? What do you want to have done at this event so you have something to focus on? And then, there's lots and lots more advice. Please, if you had advice for people at networking events, put it down below so we can have that. But I think one of the big things I got to tell you is don't just hang out with your friends when you're there. I know in industry events, you know people. It's always nice to talk to them and see them. But if you're there to meet new clients, make sure you're not just hanging out with your old buddies. Go out there and talk to new people. Go out and hang out with new people, all right? Because if all you're doing is hanging out with the sales crew all the time, well, that's all you're ever going to know, and that's all the people you're going to know. You want to branch out more, okay? So do that. So I'm sure many of you have more don'ts of networking, because there are a lot more, and I'm sure I'll put together a mistakes of networking video to give you some more stuff. But I was here in this beautiful state of Iowa and visiting the covered bridges of Madison County, and I felt I had to make a video because that's just pretty. So I hope you do well. Good luck at your networking event. Hope you meet some new people, meet some new clients, maybe make a friend or two. It could happen. Anyway, I wish you all the best. I'll say bye from here in Madison County, Iowa.